McCollum Wellness Radio on AM 1080 KSCO, Santa Cruz.
Opinions expressed in the following sponsored program are not necessarily those of KSCO Radio, its staff, management, or advertisers. If something is said with which you disagree, please call us during the program in order to help us balance comments.
In my life there came a time when I had to make a change. You know that things just weren't right. I looked around for someone else to blame. I searched and I searched and I reached down inside. And I knew when I found there's a light I can hide. I can be free, I can be free, I can rise above.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum coming to you from Santa Cruz, California. It's a beautiful day here at the beach. And I love that song, We Can Be Free by Steve Funderburg, sung by Tony Lindsay, 8-time Grammy Award winner. And, you know, we can be free. And it's come to a time in our life right now that we need to do everything we can to boost our immune system, prepare for the next times, what's ever going to happen in the future. I have the great pleasure of having an amazing guest on today, Dr. Rafael Gonzalez, PhD and Bachelor's in Science from the University of Cal Irvine. He's studied a lot with the immune system, spinal cord injuries, has extensive research in degenerative disorders, spinal cord injuries. And really what's very cool is he's very involved in stem cell production. We're going to learn about that. Natural killer cells, he'll explain what that is. And I'm just to let you all know, I was in Cancun a couple weeks ago with about 30 doctors, Dan Pompa's group, and Rafael and I and the rest of us got a chance to hang out for quite a bit. But I also had 120 million stem cells put into my veins, and what an amazing result that is. And I'll talk about that a little more. But first and foremost, I want to invite or welcome you to the show, Doc, and it's good to have you here.
Dr. McCollum, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate your time, appreciate the audience, and the ability to speak more than anything else about my passion, my purpose, what I love to do, and discussing more than anything else is, you know, the understanding of what transpires in our body. I've studied extensively, you know, cells in general, not only stem cells, but cells in general. And it's crazy how, you know, we as adults communicate with each other and can express ourselves through communication. Yet it's exactly what transpires actually in our bodies. And one cell has to communicate with another cell in the body, and they all do this. Every single cell in our body has to do this. I mean, it's the basic living unit of life in our body, and it's what helps us. If you consider what transpires with someone when they have, for instance, a heart attack, or they start to have narrowing of the arteries and it becomes a problem, our body has to basically find a way to adjust. And in this case, what it does to adjust is it starts communicating with other cells around the body. And the way this communication is done is through these nanoparticles that we now know. And it's really, really interesting field that's growing a ton of attention, which are called exosomes. And these are basically essentially bioactive molecules that one cell secrete out, and they travel from one cell to another cell, and it basically tells a cell what to do. For instance, in what I just described right now, We know with time we have narrowing of the arteries and eventually we can possibly have a heart attack. But when that's transpiring, the natural mechanism of our body is for the cells surrounding that area are for these exosomes to secrete out a particular molecule called vascular endothelial growth factor. This is a factor that helps increase vasculature. So let's say we didn't have that connection from one area of the heart to the other area of the heart. The concept here is that this factor that's released by communicating cells causes new vasculature, meaning new veins, new arteries to grow out to try to make that bridge so that heart attack does not happen. In many instances, the occlusion, basically, the narrowing of the artery starts to happen too quickly, and that's why eventually we do have a heart attack. But the communication, no matter what, even when we do have a heart attack, the reason why we live is because instantaneously our cells start secreting out these exosomes to make that change to help us to survive. Because we, as humans, are designed to survive. We are designed to live in homeostasis. So with that in mind, I've done a lot of years of work with different cell types and understanding first and foremost that you know this and I know this, there is nothing more important, especially in these times, than your immune system. Every single disease has an immune component to it. Anything you can think of has an immune component to it. And as we age, unfortunately, our immune system does not function as well. So it's a problem. So the first cell I'm going to talk to you about is something that we do and you're very well aware of, is a natural killer cell. And this is part of your initial immune response, which is called the innate immune response. And this particular cell plays a critical role in many different things. And we're going to go through all three of them. Number one, it plays a critical role in cancer, the most important role actually in cancer. And it's an immediate responder to anything that starts to mutate. The problem is the reason why we're more prone to getting cancer as we age, believe it or not, when you hit 50, the remainder of your life, there's a 50% likeliness of you getting cancer. It's because that particular cell and our immune system is not functioning correctly to recognize that tumor cell or that cancerous cell in our body. So as we age, these cells age. The second thing that this particular cell, the natural killer cell, does is go around and surveil for viruses. Viruses that come in and intrude our body, just like we know coronavirus just recently. And it comes in and it wipes out. It's a natural killer, just like it says, it's a natural killer. And it comes in and it wipes out virally loaded cells because that's its job. But once again, as we age, these natural killer cells are not killers anymore. They're more like dormant office workers that haven't really done much. They don't factor much. And all they do is some light signaling and that's it. The last role that these NK cells play is in a particular cell that we've gathered a ton of interest because we now know we can associate all age-related diseases with it. And this is called the senescent cell. Cells in our body have three fates: a natural turnover, which is called apoptosis, a trauma, which is called necrosis, where a cell just blows up. The apoptosis naturally occurs in our body, and essentially the cell, your own body just turns it over. Cells, billions of cells turn over in our body daily. The last fate is what's called a senescent cell. A senescent cell is essentially a cell that has divided, and has now stopped dividing, and all it does is occupy space. And all it does is just sit there, and it's an old age cell that does nothing that causes, for instance, the ability to have a wrinkle. The wrinkle, one of the problems is you have a senescent cell that's actually not secreting out collagen, not secreting out elastin. Many different cell types that we associate with senescence that we normally hear about disease. Cirrhosis of the liver, that's a senescent cell that's just occupying space and causing havoc. Fibrosis of the lung, that's another senescent cell that's just causing havoc. The problem with this senescence as we age is if we don't remove it or if we don't get rid of it, it causes havoc, just like I said, in the communication barrier of what we just discussed, with other cells around it. And it causes other cells to mutate. There's now evidence that these senescent cells in our body cause cancer. There's evidence that these senescent cells actually further exacerbate heart disease, heart attacks. blood pressure issues, all of it across the board, neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all of these. So it's a big problem that we have. And natural killer cells, one of their biggest targets is actually what we're studying is a senescent cell. So one of the things that we actually do.
That's just so much great information. And, people have heard me talk about the senescent cell on the show quite a bit. Senile cells or senescent cells. And these, as Dr. Rafael was saying, these are cells that they're done doing their job. They're sitting there, they're just kind of taking up a lot of energy and not really producing anything. And then because they're kind of like a bored teenager, they just start causing trouble. They start producing, they can convert into cancer cells, disease cells, and it's kind of like a rotten apple in a group of apples. This one cell, a senescent cell, is going to rot, and then it's going to get the rest of the apples close to it rotting, and it can cause all kinds of chronic disease. So, I'm real excited about learning more about the natural killer cells. I just want to kind of reiterate a couple of things that you have said, about the way that our cells go through life, our body goes through life, and there's usually a programmed cell death. There's a start of a cell, it goes through a process, and then it is supposed to die. That's called apoptosis. Well, for whatever reason, and you're in my association with Dr. Dan Pompa and that group, we know that there's so many reasons this whole mechanism goes cuckoo, basically. The cells that are supposed to die from apoptosis are not. They're sitting around becoming senescent cells and causing all kinds of problems. And we know that, and what got, I think, Dr. Pompa originally interested in this, as well as our group of Health Centers of the Future Doctors, is through intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet, we know that we are, through fasting, we're actually causing the body to go through and do what's called autophagy or autophagy, or self-eating of these bad, weak cells in our body, these senescent cells, cancer cells, knocking out bad microbiome. The other toxins in your body are basically burned during times of fasting for fuel. So what we're talking about here, and you're going to go into this, I believe, is when we actually can get our own natural killer cells, propagate them to a degree, which you'll explain, and then reintroduce those to our body. It's like getting your car detailed. I mean, that's going through every nook and cranny and wiping out all these damaging cells and basically giving us a new lease on life. And so I kind of want to put it into lay terms there a little bit. So why don't you tell us how you get, or go forward from here, but definitely how do we get these killer cells? How do you introduce them, and what can we expect from them, and how long do they last? And we'll go ahead and have you do that, and then we'll come right back into, you know what, are you there, Josh? We're gonna have to take a real quick commercial break, and when we come back, let's talk about what we can do to make this happen.
And there's nowhere left to go. The truth is right in front of you. You will see it will make a better road. You search and you reach down inside. And you'll know when you find there's a light you can't hide. You can be free.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. McCollum. I have this amazing guy, Gary, here, who's a new patient to our office. And he just came up to the front and started talking about stuff, and I wanted you to just express what you were telling us.
Hi, Dr. McCollum.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gary McKinney. I live in Seaside. I listen to PSCO on Saturdays, and I heard Dr. McCollum has a phenomenal show at 1 o'clock on PSCO.
Yeah.
So please check him out sometime. But the real reason is I've been a client of Dr. McCollum for 10 days now, and I feel like I've been with him in his office for well over, all my life. Everyone that works at the office is so helpful and so friendly. It really feels like a family. He's not just joking when he says that that they welcome you and and is able to take care of every need. I came in for TRT treatment, which is a tissue regenerative therapy, which is phenomenal. And you know, it's a little bit costly, but I mean, what price are you willing to pay for not being healthy? And because that everything affects everything else, and the TRT has already made a difference in my life. But what is really satisfying to me is coming here and meeting fine people like Natalie, which is Dr. McCallum's daughter. And frequently she's the utility player running around the office. And she always, you can always tell that Natalie's on the phone because she will always say, McCallum Chiropractic, I can help you. And you know what? She can and she does. And it just makes my heart jump just to realize there's such helpful and friendly people in the office. Everyone from Angus, who runs the TRT machine, the other chiropractors in the office, and the administrative staff like Miriam and Arlene, they're very friendly and very helpful. You never have to follow up on everything. They send you messages a day before your appointments. It makes it so seamless, so bulletproof, just to be in a safe place where you can rely on treatment. And if you have a problem, Dr. McCallum will go the extra mile to make it happen. And not the least of which, Dr. McCallum, besides a chiropractor, he's a naturopath. So he's one dangerous dude in the health realm because there's all sorts of alternative methodologies he's using. He also has his finger on the pulse of detoxification from 5G and things of that nature, which he'll be willing to share with you as he's collecting the data. And he's also a master of detoxification of heavy metals and things of that nature. And he has a very extensive survey to fill out so that he can help you better on that. And I'm looking forward to the detox process as well. So this is all unsolicited. Dr. McCallum asked me to just say a few words. I could go on and on because I feel so comfortable here. If you want to feel comfortable at a chiropractor's office, come to Dr. McCallum. He's conveniently located off of 41st Avenue. And come on down. They're waiting for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right, this is Dr. McCallum. Thank you. I wanted to play that tape from Gary, a really great guy, and I really appreciate all his comments. We're talking with Dr. Rafael Gonzalez today. We're talking about natural killer cells and stem cells, and we're going to go into what he does to actually take your own natural killer cells and expand them to a point where they can actually go down and do a complete detailing of your body down to every nook and cranny and give you a new lease on life. You know, I was listening to a show this morning and somebody said, health is wealth. And, you know, there's no price that you should consider to be in the way of you getting healthy. So anyway, Dr. Rafael, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much. And you were talking about exosomes at the beginning of the show. Exosomes, for the audience, they're 1,000 times smaller than your cells, I believe. And
Yes.
They come out of your cells, and those guys are pretty powerful. But we're going to go back into the natural killer cells, which are T cells, I believe, T helper cells. And
They're
and
NK cells.
Explain all that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, these are part of the immediate immune response. Like I said earlier, dealing with cancer, dealing with viruses, and dealing with these senile or what we call senescent cells. And essentially what we do, the problem is, as you know, we age, they don't function well. So we extract out a blood from you, and this is called autologous because it's from you and it's used to you. And we essentially extract out some blood. It's about 150 mLs, which if sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's about 1/3 of a pint of a normal blood donation. From there, we isolate the white blood cells. From isolating the white blood cells, we then go into purification, growth, and activation of NK cells. We normally start off with anywhere from about 10 to 20 million NK cells, and we grow them and propagate them and activate them all the way from about 1 billion cells to about 2 billion cells. And the concept is these cells are then going to go right back into you through a simple IV. This is complete personalized medicine. They're activated. And the concept is simple. I essentially put an IV into you. And when we discuss putting an IV of anything into anybody, we essentially discuss the first right of anything going through the lungs. So IVs go first in the blood system to the lung, because it's a venous transfusion, goes first to the lungs, and then liver, spleen, and then systemically the rest of the body travels around. But the concept here is simple. It's actually to do one particular thing. It's to wipe out your immune senescent cells. Those cells in your body that a part of the immune system that are not functioning correctly. It's to activate your immune system. Wiping out those cells now causes your own body to remove those ones that are doing nothing but occupying space and causing havoc. And it forces your own bone marrow. Now it's a signaling cue, because we have a set amount of cells that we have in our body on a regular basis. It forces your own bone marrow to now secrete out young active cells that need to be used to do the job, essentially resetting your immune system. We have evidence, and we're going to publish this relatively soon, that we can reset your immune system to a younger state based on particular markers. So it's something that essentially strengthens your immune system significantly. And when you discuss strengthening your immune system, you think of how good you just naturally feel. You feel great, because even joint pains, which we're going to go into in a little bit, anytime you pass 40 years of old, the susceptibility of having any form of ortho issues is going to be really, really high. Osteoarthritis is pretty much on the rise, and depending on how active you are, the worse it's going to be once you hit 40. But essentially, if you don't do anything to your immune system, all you're doing is targeting a local area, and eventually, most likely, it'll come back.
You know, if I can jump in here for the audience for a second. So you're talking about these natural killer cells, and you had mentioned our own white blood cells that are no longer doing the job. And what happens with these white blood cells and the autoimmune diseases that we have, our body's fighting itself so much because it's confused. But these white blood cells, it's like they act inappropriately. Like, let's say you had a bad day at work. You go home, you see the dog, and you kick the dog. The dog didn't do anything wrong. So what happens with these confused white blood cells in our body is you get one little teeny weeny little environmental bug in your body, or a little pollen or something, and it explodes way past where it's supposed to do. It's an inappropriate response. And that's why we have so much inflammation in our body. We have so much, all the arthritises are all caused by inflammation. You know, chronic inflammation causes chronic disease. So what we're talking about is wiping out the old confused white blood cells that don't know how to respond. They all have tempers, and we're putting in new, younger ones that are kind of naive, and they'll just act appropriate to an appropriate response. Does that explain it pretty well, Doc?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, that's essentially what we're going to do, is try to put you in the correct homeostasis, because as we age, it's just unfortunate we have a consistent amount of inflammation, and we go into chronic inflammatory state, and that's what causes the mass amount of havoc, pain, issues, other issues. And if you don't resolve those issues, whether it be what you just discussed earlier, is diet is key, number one. Diet number one, environmental number two, removing stress number three. But essentially what we're doing is we're giving you complete health interiorly, because if you've had an issue, the chance of you fixing it with all those is really good. But you're going to also need that extra to put you back in to that younger state, so we can actually help you with that. And that's our focus when we discuss the concept of NK cells, natural killer cells. So these are essentially from you. We take blood, expand them out, activate them, and put them back into your body to make sure that essentially your immune system is functioning correctly.
You know, so much of the news out there, everybody's talking about, well, nobody's talking about strengthening your immune system, really. They're talking about all these other external things we want to put into the body to try to help us fight off all this terrible things. I'm on Facebook, so I can't say certain things or will be taken down. But, you know, you're talking about internal. so much of our energy is used to fight these long-standing conditions in our body of inflammation. And then, it's all these old white blood cells, or these natural killer cells, or these immune cells. They're fighting each other. They're fighting your body. We've got to get our body quiet and calm down so it can actually handle the external environment, which, we have this amazing innate ability to heal, but it's so messed up with the foods, with the toxins, with all these cells that aren't dying appropriately, and we end up with this chronic inflammatory disease. So I had a couple friends when we were in Mexico who got the natural killer cells. I ended up getting the stem cells, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But so when somebody gets the natural killer cells, you're looking at about a 6-month process. How long does it take for them to do their job?
Normally, so NK cells, when we put them back into the body, they do their job within 28 days. Essentially, the job of them circulating, the maximum is 28 days that they'll be circulating systemically in your body, of them doing the job of wiping out what needs to be wiped out and reverting your immune system to a younger state. Actually, as early as 3 days in many instances, with some of the studies that you've actually seen that we've actually done, that we show with looking at particular proteins that we look at, that shows that within 3 days, it's a pretty quick response to wipe out the bad stuff that's in there. And then ultimately it's up to your body now to follow up with regenerating. And now, since it has that void of that bad stuff being there, it has a clean slate, it has a clean environment that it can actually start doing, these things. Now is the perfect time, after doing something like this, to make sure that you're eating right, that you're helping your system. Because if you don't understand what's transpiring with you, with your diet, with your food, you're initially going to essentially just put another bad signal in there, and you're going to put yourself in that chronic inflammatory state again. So it's one of the best methods to clean your system out, and everybody straight across the board feels really well.
So oftentimes we talk about the health of the cells of our body, and we rate them from 1 to 10, 10 being the healthiest, 10, 9, 8, 7. As cells get older and they get more damaged, they produce weaker and weaker cells. So an older, weaker, toxic cell is going to produce, instead of a 7, a 6. That one will do a 5. And so that's kind of the aging process. The cells are not regenerated as brand new cells again. So my thought is, was we're doing these natural killer cells, we're wiping off the weaker ones and allowing the healthier ones to regenerate, and especially when we're getting the new stem cells coming out of the bone marrow. So why does we have to do this? You can't do this in the United States. You do this in Cancun, right?
Mexico, correct. Yeah, because there's rules. The rules and regulations here in the U.S. are, whenever you take a cell and what they call manipulate it, meaning even if it's from you, I've taken it out and I've culture expanded it, I've grown it out, it's regulated. So it's a regulated cell, unfortunately. Even if it's from you and it goes back into you, it's considered a regulated cell. We have permission to actually do this in Mexico by the FDA equivalent, which is called COFEPRIS. They allow it. NK cells, autologous NK cells, are actually approved in many countries outside of the United States, Mexico being one, Korea being another one, Japan being another one that does quite a bit of work, and China too. As long as it's from you, they allow it. So it's actually approved out there quite a bit. And if you look up natural killer cells, for instance, on clinicaltrials.gov, you'll actually find over 1,000 clinical studies on cancer in the United States and outside the United States, targeting cancer, basically essentially to wipe out cancerous cells. But our target is now, if you don't have cancer, and even if you have some mutated cells that you don't know, is strengthen your immune system. We have evidence that we can do that with these cells. Prepare them so later on down the line, you're not worried about, you have cancer. Bring your immune system to that healthier, younger state, and bring that immune system to where it actually can target, kill out, and do what it needs to do.
And you're doing some studies that you're trying to bring into the United States, as I understand, right?
We actually, so we do have, on the next topic, we talk about stem cells, which I'll describe what we have in stem cells. We actually have 4 clinical studies in the stem cell sector. We have a particular stem cell that's called an umbilical cord lining stem cell. We published a paper in 2010. We've been researching it. And then finally, as of 2019, we got FDA approval for our first clinical study, which is for an autoimmune disease polymyositis, dermatomyositis with lung involvement. It's a particular autoimmune disease that deteriorates muscle, deteriorates skin. Then the second indication we got approval for, believe it or not, is COVID. So COVID is another study that we actually have, and these are Florida-based university studies that we're doing for COVID, and it's for individuals that have what's called acute respiratory distress syndrome and that are on ventilators for COVID. That's a Florida study now. And then the other two studies that we got approved just recently, one of them is for pediatric Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and the other one is for heart failure for individuals that have left ventricular assisted device and have heart failure. So those are the 4 approved clinical studies that we have in the United States with this particular stem cell that we have a patented technology on throughout the United States and throughout the world, where from umbilical cord post-birth, first and foremost, we get specific donors, the donors that don't have any viruses at all, meaning they don't have Epstein-Barr virus, they don't have cytomegalovirus, which just essentially wipes out 75% of the patient population now. And we get dynamics of really, really clean screened individuals where they donate post-birth. And we take from a segment of cord that's about 4 or 5 inches, we can actually produce trillions of cells, very, very young cells that we've put them into a very, very fantastic diet. It's like the best diet. And what we noticed was that just like what we eat, you are what you eat. Everybody's always preached now, low sugar, no sugar. That's exactly what's been our key to success with maintaining our cells at a very young state, where we can produce millions of doses of 100 million cells like the ones that you actually gotten over there. And these are the same thing, put in a Petri dish, culture expanded out, grown up. So these are not what you hear out there in the United States. Everybody says they have stem cells. This is not that. This is truly, a true stem cell, a pure stem cell that's been grown.
I want to talk about that because several of my patients have had, and a lot of other people have had what they believe to be stem cell injections into their knees or other parts of their body. Now, you cannot do IV stem cells in the United States, I believe, but also what I think ends up happening is when they do get stem cells, they take them from the hip or the fat of the people, the actual individual, and then they extract their own stem cells. And if you're 60, 70, 80 years old, they're not very strong. And then put those in platelet-rich plasma, which is your own blood that they take the red blood cells out, and inject that back into the body. Oftentimes, just the injection of the platelet-rich plasma will give people symptoms of relief or relieve their symptoms, but they're not really getting the stem cells that they are being told they're getting. And I know that what I had was 120 million IV stem cells, but also you guys put 30 million stem cells in my own serum, my own platelet-rich plasma, and injected that into about 6 segments of my upper spine where I broke my back when I was young, and I have tremendous degeneration in there. And being a chiropractor for 30 years is like playing tackle football for 30 years. And you said, you'll probably be sore after this. Well, I've been feeling better. I wake up out of pain. I think the combination of the intravenous cells on top of this have been tremendous. But, what is the difference about what they get in the United States versus what we can get down there in Mexico?
So first and foremost, understanding that what if I take out of your bone marrow stem cells,
when they extract out of your bone marrow and they tell you that they're giving you stem cells,
extract out of your bone marrow and they're telling you that they're giving you stem cells, and I've worked in the bone marrow sector. Essentially, you're getting, if you're 50 years of age, the amount of stem cells in that bone marrow is about 0.00001% of the total cell population in there. When we do it in fat, if I extract out fat from you and I produce a cell population, the amount of stem cells in there is 0.01% of the total cell population that's actually in there. What we actually do is we take a cell, we extract it out, and then we culture expand. We grow this cell up. You're only getting one cell. It's 100% pure umbilical cord lining stem cell that we've tested, studied, done a ton of different work with, including exosome work with what the cells secrete out so they can survive. We've done so much research on this cell type, and we are comfortable with what we can actually do and what we can predict with it. And the biggest part of your success, I think, is exactly what I said, is if you don't treat the systemic issue of that inflammatory response consistently going, for instance, in your case, to your back, you can temporarily relieve it, but that systemic inflammation is still going to be circulating around the body, and it's a problem. You got to deal with that, and you got to control that. And what we know for fact is that when we take these cells, we've studied them well, and we have a ton of abundance of actually data in COVID more than anything else that we've gotten back, that we know that I can take this cell and put this cell in you, and those chronic inflammatory cells, which are called Th1 pro-inflammatory T cells, I can change those cells with the cell that I put in you to what's called the regulatory T cell. This is a CD25 regulatory T cell. And what that cell does in your body is essentially go and surveil everywhere and regulate your immune system. So if something becomes pro-inflammatory, it has a change and a response to make it anti-inflammatory. It's a regulator of your system. And when we use these cells, this is what I know I can do. That's step one, I know I can do. Step two, I know I can do.
Amazing. And I can tell you, I don't know if I told you this, if I got a chance, the number one thing that I noticed almost immediately, and I don't know if this is common with everybody, but my Technicolor vision was like astounding. I kind of liken it to looking at an old 1972 color TV. Everything's kind of gray, even though it's color. And then, like a day after I got the stem cells, I felt like I was looking at a high definition 2021 TV. It was like, wow, everything's so much brighter. And, and also the fact is that I just don't have the inflammation, and I wake up in no pain now. And, even though I'm 65 years old, it blows me away, the results that I got from it. But also just knowing that these cells, now when I get them injected, again, they go to my lungs, what are they doing at each one of those organs as they go to lungs, liver, and spleen, and then they go systemically? Are they helping correct things along the way? Like if somebody has lung problems, is it going to help with that? And I also want to ask this question on either the natural killer cells and or the stem cells, but if somebody's had chemical injury, whether it's chemotherapy or toxicity at something at work or their environment, are the natural killer cells and or stem cells able to go back in and heal and replace those old damaged cells?
Yeah, let's start with the last question first. Yeah, the NK cells can actually remove those damaged cells, because that's one of the things that it does, and then help revert your immune system to a younger state, that it can actually remove many of those toxins. But going to the stem cells, and even stem cells can actually help too, because essentially we just said, it regulates your immune system. It'll help regulate your immune system. That's one thing it does. So when we do an IV, essentially, especially in the case of stem cells are larger than NK cells. And when we discuss the context of larger, the particular cells that we have, these cells are about 12 micron in size, and NK cells about 8 micron in size. So when we stick a cell into an IV in your arm, it goes to your lung first. It's a little large for it to try to pass through the lung vasculature into the rest of the system. So what transpires, it docks there and it waits there. And look at it like it's essentially the way your system works is a complete lock and key system with complementary sequences, just like computers, just like that's the way we actually work. And what we look at is the cell, for instance, is the lock. And the rest of what's transpiring in your body, in your immune system, is the key. And the key signals and produces a signal. In many cases, it's called a chemokine, or in many cases, it could be a cytokine, a particular chemo. It's an attractant that the cell needs to respond to. The cell, for the cell to survive in that lung, he's got to make that correct key or that correct connection for him to be able to survive. Otherwise, her will not survive. They won't survive in the body. So the cell, once it goes into your body, strives to survive, and it secretes out what it needs to secrete out to make that change, to make your body healthy. So that secretion is what we discussed a little bit ago, was the exosomes, or these bioactive molecules. These can go into the system because they're 1/1000th of the size of the rest of a cell. So they can go systemically relatively quickly and go to where they need to go and make a change. That's one. Two, within time, the cells have an actual capability, like we did animal studies on this and we saw this, they have a capability to actually what's called extravate. They can smash, go between the endothelial wall and then continue on its path to where they need to go. So they can essentially, what the term is called, extravate into where they need to actually go. They can actually do that too. And like we said, the next pass is the liver, spleen, and then the rest of the system. What we saw in our animal studies was essentially predominantly in the lung, then followed by, after 3 days, anywhere in the liver, spleen, and then, believe it or not, much into the sexual organs, and then eventually actually up into cardiovascular, heart, and even in brain at about 7 to 10 days. But after that, we essentially didn't see many cells survive, because the cells, they try their best to survive. They just basically secrete out all these different factors to make sure that your own body makes a change. It makes sure that your body is in homeostasis. And then they're gone. They've done their job. They activate your own stem cells to include, for instance, they secrete out a factor called stem cell factor. And stem cell factor is what actually causes your own endogenous stem cells to be activated and to be secreted. Because we, as humans, have stem cells that are circulating in our body. But the problem is that they're not active. They're not activated. They can't do a job without becoming activated.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. So I'm just curious, you know about the stem cell machine we have, the TRT machine, right? When we
Love
use it on a joint, it pulls, you know, the science shows that it's pulling your own stem cells in there. Is there something that activates them at that point?
Yes, it sounds like in that particular machine, which I love that machine, because that machine is fantastic. It essentially activates, like we just said, some factors. One of the factors, maybe it activates stem cell factor, maybe it activates vascular endothelial growth factor. There's all these different growth factors in our body that become active, that make functional changes in our body. You know, one of the other things, for instance, what you described about the vision, is I get that commonly from people, is vision and sleep immediately after, that it changes significantly. And what that has to deal with is the cells that we actually use, we have an abundance of evidence that they increase blood flow. We all know as we age, the amount of blood flow that we have circulating slows down significantly. That's why our vision goes down. That's why we don't heal as well, because you think about it, there's not enough nutrients, not enough oxygenation going to the brain, going to the lungs, going everywhere. The healing process slows down significantly. If we increase that blood flow, we now get better healing. In many cases, just like you said, people discuss, you know, hey, I mean, I don't know how we can see this unless we actually target looking at vision, but they describe what you actually described there. You know, straight across the board, I get many people say, I've been sleeping so good, I feel so much better. And it's because we essentially have regulated your immune system and we've increased blood flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you mention it, I've been sleeping amazing. And, you know, I think I see one of those rings on your finger, the ones that measure your
aura,
you at night. I have one of those, and the aura ring, and I'm sleeping so much better, and my resting heart rate is down below 50. It's usually about 44 at night, which is amazing. And then something called heart rate variability is in a really nice high range. So I didn't even equate that to this. But, you know, for anybody interested, I want you to be able to get a hold of your clinic. And I'm just going to read off the website, and you can always call my office to get it, because most of you listen to me every week. But it's www.rhlth, like R for regenerative, health minus vowels, rhlth.tips, like TIPS /McCollum, MCCOLLUM. And they would probably talk to Dr. Ortiz and or somebody at that clinic there. And I would really love for anybody who wants to get healthier, like right now's the time. Health is wealth. And, you know, we can do so much to increase our immune system. But if you're really serious about getting healthy, if you really want to do something that's going to give you longevity, where you can remember your name and you can get around and pick up your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, then this is something you might want to look into. We've got about 8 or 9 minutes left, Doc. Why don't you just go ahead and tell us what you want to do or talk about, or how people can get a hold of you, and anything else that's on your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's any questions, they can actually contact me at www.biobox.com. So BIOBOX.com. I'm here to help. Everybody knows that I'm here to help answer questions more than anything else. But if you want, actually, if you're interested in going to Mexico and learning more, to learn actually if you're a candidate, because not everybody's a candidate for these type of therapies, or if we can help, you're welcome to contact them with that link that Dr. McCollum actually gave you, and they'll answer. They'll do a full evaluation on you. They'll ask you specific questions. They'll set up an appointment based on. They'll send you a calendar. They'll set up an appointment and talk to you, online through the phone, and they'll essentially evaluate if you're a good, candidate. This, remember, more than anything else, is essentially not a cure. We don't construe this as being a cure, nothing like that, but it's actually an improvement in your quality of life. For instance, we've seen heart failure patients, individuals that can barely bend down and tie their shoelaces. You can completely tell that, I mean, they just get up and they're exhausted. And we've increased individuals that have been from a, class 4 heart failure to a class 2 heart failure. You're now talking about a patient that can probably walk a golf course, play golf. So it's an improvement in your quality of life significantly. And essentially, as we age, this is what we look at having what's called a health span. So we healthy. I mean, we want to be healthy. We want to continue to do what we want to do. And just like you said, you want to be able to play with your grandkids. You want to be able to, live life to its fullest, because it's important, because here today, gone tomorrow. And
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, obviously, I can tell you our experience down there was amazing. Your clinic is so cool. And I sat next to two friends, Roy and Andrea, as we were getting treated, and
yeah,
it was just such a great experience. And then Cancun is awesome. I mean, we had a lot of fun there as we were getting healthier. And I just encourage anybody who wants to experience being healthier, turning back your biological clock. As you guys all know, I wrote the book, Turn Back Your Biological Clock, that you can download for free at mccollumwellness.com/clock. But I'm going to give the URL again. It's http double or colon backslash or whatever that, y'all know that, rhlth.tips, TIPS /McCollum, and that will get you to the clinic, and they'll know that you came from me, so they'll take much better care of you. No, they would anyway, but just we want to make sure that you get the care you need. And I can answer any questions at my office. You can always get a hold of me, McCollum Chiropractic in Capitola, and I'll get you to where you need to go and find out whether or not you can be helped by this. So anything else that you'd like to just touch on before we end the show? We've got about 5 minutes.
Yeah, so understanding that people have a general fear, just like all of us do, of going to Mexico for care. That is, I mean, Dr. McCollum, he went down there, and many have gone down there.
It's a different level of care.
Everybody speaks perfect English. It's very, very Americanized. Cancun is phenomenal. The hotels, the food, the service, straight across the board is very, very good. If you're on a strict diet, high diet, we have colleagues that are very, very, very particular about what they eat, and they cater to your every needs. Not because it's the clinic that I work at, because I've done a ton of work with, but we are very particular to make sure that we take care of you, to make sure that, you get the best service that you can get. And that most importantly, that we make sure that we live up to the expectations of what you're expecting. You tell us what's your problem, and we tell you if, after we've understood fully what's going on, if we can help you. And we will tell you what we believe we can help with, and be honest with you as far as what we believe we can't help you with. And that's the key, thing of the way we work. And that's how we've actually been successful with many people. And if you're going to go down there and take vacation, because there's nothing more important. There's nothing better than having memories, putting your feet in that sand, swimming in that phenomenal water. If you're able to swim, do whatever you can do. Take those a couple extra days and stay there and enjoy. It's important.
Yeah, and it was really fun. The people are so friendly. But so if somebody wants to come down to your clinic, they obviously fly into Cancun, and then are they just kind of left to get there by themselves, or what happens once they land in Cancun? Do people know they're coming? Can you walk us through that process?
100%. Yeah. Once you've been accepted as a candidate, our concierge service will set everything up for you. They'll help you if you need help with booking hotel. They'll make reservations if needed. Whatever you need, they'll help you with. As soon as you land in Cancun, our crew will pick you up. They'll be there at the airport to pick you up. They will take you to the hotel if that's where you're going first, or they'll take you to the clinic, depending on how your schedule is. They'll take you. The transportation is going to be all done through us. So individuals that we've been dealing with for years, a transportation service that we've been dealing with for years, will go pick you up, will take you from point A, from point B, and they will actually return you at the end to the airport. So whenever you're ready to fly back home.
Yeah, it's very seamless, very friendly. It was an amazing experience. Again, I'm talking with Dr. Rafael Gonzalez. We're talking about rejuvenating your health. We're talking about stem cells that you can't get anywhere in the United States. It's such a high quality. And if anybody wants to call me and talk to me about my experience, please do. McCollum Family Chiropractic. And also, we are learning about how to basically give your body, the inside of it, a detail like you would get your car detailed. It's basically, we have a chance right now. The world is so different than it was a year ago. We have a chance to be ahead of the curve by miles and miles by cleaning up our body, getting our immune system stronger than it's ever been before. And those that do that are going to have the best chance of, you know, surviving all of the stuff that's going down, you know, all of these different things that we're being told on the media that we should be doing with very little science behind it. The science behind what you're doing, Dr. Rafael, is outstanding, and I really appreciate it. So I'm just going to have you just tell us who you are and how to get a hold of you again, and then I think we're about done.
Yeah, Dr. Rafael Gonzalez. You can contact me at www.thebiobox.com is the company, or my email is rgonzalez, R like my name, Rafael Gonzalez, GONZALEZ at thebiobox.com. The company is the Biobox. rgonzalez at thebiobox.com. If you have any questions, any concerns, I'm here to help more than anything else. If I can help anybody, if I can make a change in one life, I think I've done a great job. And that's what I'm here for.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending your Saturday with us. And I love all you guys out there, all you listeners, and please tell other people about this. And this show will be, it is recorded. And so you will be able to find it on my podcast in a couple of days, McCollum Wellness Radio, podcast.com, I guess is what it is. And Dr. Rafael, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate you and all your crew. And we will hopefully see you real soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. God bless everybody and take care of yourselves.
You know when you find there's a light you can't hide.